Despite the regressively conservative Supreme Court's recent attempts to kneecap him, Dark Brandon just invoked a separate authority to cancel a whopping $39 billion in student loans for more than 800,000 borrowers. Intrigued? Then click that like, subscribe, and the alert bell, and maybe check out my Patreon link, and enjoy the video. All right, folks, so I'm sure most of you remember just a couple of weeks ago there was a landmark Supreme Court case called Biden v. Missouri et al., because there were multiple red states involved in this. And the Supreme Court, the regressively conservative Supreme Court, and their 6-3 conservative majority, bent over backwards, tied themselves in knots to try to come up with a justification to strike down President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan, to the extent that they granted standing to Missouri when many legal experts say that Missouri didn't have any. And we've done videos about this, so there's no need to relitigate it. But the bottom line is it was a major blow against President Biden's agenda to wipe out quite a bit in student loan debt for American citizens. But he did say, in public remarks afterwards, presumably because he anticipated that the conservatives on the court would do just a thing, he committed to the American people that he would pursue other legal avenues to try to wipe out as much student loan debt as he possibly could. And apparently he's making good on that promise, because he just, with a single stroke of his pen, wiped out $39 billion for 804,000 borrowers. It's good news. Now, I want to play this clip by a Republican congresswoman named Lisa McClain, because she is just raging out at this. It's hilarious, and then we'll unpack the whole thing.
Unfortunately, President Biden just announced that by the stroke of his pen, he is going to forgive $39 billion in student loans this morning. Now, let me be clear. This is in direct violation of the Supreme Court's decision just 2 weeks ago that blocked his student loan forgiveness plan. But I guess the president has no respect for the constitutional authority of the Supreme Court.
Oh, wow. That sounds really bad, Representative McClain. That sounds awful. Except you're wrong. You're just absolutely freaking wrong, okay? According to experts, this authority that President Biden invoked had absolutely nothing to do with his previous student loan forgiveness plan, which, again, the Supreme Court did strike down, and whether we like it or not, President Biden has decided to comply with the Supreme Court. He says he accepts the decision, even though he thinks they got it wrong, and even though he's frustrated. He's using a separate congressionally approved statutory authority that's delegated to the Department of Education to do what he did, and we'll unpack it. But Abby Shafroth, the director of Student Loan Borrower Assistance Project, said Friday's announcement has no relation to the Supreme Court case and doesn't raise legal concerns because it's built on longstanding congressional authority over income-driven repayment plans. Congress created these plans that provide debt relief to people who make payments based on their income for 20 to 25 years. What we're seeing today are some long-needed fixes to that program so that borrowers actually get the relief that Congress intended. So Representative McClain is just wrong. She's just upset because student loan borrowers are experiencing some sort of relief when they might not otherwise, experience it. So whatever. As far as the overall announcement itself, the Biden administration announced on Friday would wipe out $39 billion of student loan student loan debt for 804,000 borrowers. The relief stems from administrative fixes on existing income-driven repayment plans, according to the Department of Education. The administration said it was addressing historical failures in which qualifying payments under those plans that should have brought borrowers closer to qualifying for debt forgiveness but were not properly accounted for. Under existing income-driven repayment plans, borrowers can get their remaining student loan balance, as we talked about in the previous article, wiped after they've been making payments for 20 or 25 years. This is really cool, to get some borrowers to that threshold, the Biden administration counted partial and late payments, as well as periods when a borrower was in certain categories of forbearance or deferment. And the result is $39 billion. Now, that might even be a conservative estimate, according to some, have been wiped out. $39 billion of crippling student loan debt for 804,000 borrowers. And hopefully this is just the beginning, and we're going to see additional things like this. Now, is it possible that, cruel, capricious, selfish Republican attorneys general in states will come up with some sort of, scheme to try to challenge this in front of the Supreme Court, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. And given that the Supreme Court has made it abundantly clear that they'll invent standing or will allow others to invent standing if need be to litigate their philosophical and political preferences like they did in Biden v. Missouri, it's entirely possible that might happen and that the worst might happen and the court might try to strike it down again. But according to experts, this would be a harder case to make at face value. Anyway, no matter what the outcome is, in the meantime, this is great news for President Biden. This is great news for student loan borrowers. And again, hopefully, it's just the very beginning.